Hey guys, welcome to another challenge video. And today we have a little bit of a longer sentence, especially the first one. But before we get too intimidated by it, let's just do what we always do, and that is to divide our sentence up into sections based on punctuation. And again, I'm not reading everything right now. I'm just separating things accordingly. Now, I know there's only one word here, but visually, I want to have an image of the makeup of the sentence and where breaks exist. Drawing these big lines kind of helps me put what I'm about to do in perspective. So it's a good practice for you guys as well, just to see how things are separated. So as you write in the future, when you're going to be doing your own writing, you start to see where those breaks exist and why they exist. All right. So the first part, as you can see, is a bit long. Then we get some short bursts after that. But every single sentence typically starts with a subject predicate. Here we go, I, and then we have a predicate. Now, can is a modifier, right? That is going to be modifying our main verb tell. So can tell is kind of like a short form of saying I am able to tell. Okay. Again, being able in the present tense, a main verb, and then to tell would be an infinitive. But in this case, can allows you to not have that verb plus infinitive construction, just pretty much modify the main verb tell. Okay, so I can tell. Next, we have striving right here, which right away, right off the bat, you see a verb that doesn't have a subject right next to it. So if you're having difficulty right now looking at this could be a participle. Remember that ing endings with no auxiliary verbs in front dictate a participle, okay? And again, for people who are just tuning in and don't know what I'm talking about, from the previous videos, a participle is simply a verb that has been turned into a noun. Could be a regular noun, in which case we would call it a gerundive, or it could be an adjective, okay, describing something. So in other words, we will leave this be because, well, there has to be a subject somewhere in this main sentence. Don't forget that the dash is added only for dramatic effects, which means it's going to explain whatever this sentence is about, okay? So let's leave that. Now, candor. That is definitely a noun starting at a sentence, so that's our subject. And we have a predicate, values, okay? And but, that's a separator. And look at that, our faction. So you don't want to say our, right? Our is always a possessive. So faction. And now things start to make a little bit more sense because abnegation right away, okay, one word in between commas, predicate nominative, describing faction. Okay, so the name of the faction is abnegation and it's followed by a predicate. Awesome. So we have 1, 2, 3 separate subject predicate constructions that we can recognize. But we still have this big long sentence that we unfortunately, didn't really get to, and all we have is one subject and predicate. So let's start by looking at noun cases. So by, right away, that is a preposition. How do I know? Because if I say I can tell by, you're going to ask me by what, and the answer to that question is shift. Okay. So object of preposition. Now, constant in this case is an adjective describing shift. Of his eyes, of right away tells me, hey, I am a possessive, right? So possessive and another possessive. Whose eyes? His eyes. Now, I can tell by the constant shift of his eyes that, all right, this is where, we talked about that as typically not being used to introduce relative clauses, and we've seen many places in prior challenges where that is used as a relative pronoun. And again, for you guys tuning in, I think this was challenge 31, where I talked about relative pronouns. They simply relate to something that is being discussed. So for example, the chair that I bought in the store. Okay, so the chair is my subject. That is a relative pronoun referring to chair. Now, in typical English, you don't want to use that. Okay, you want to say which or who or whom. In this case, here's an example why that is important. Because this that you see right here is not a relative pronoun. It's actually introducing something that the author can tell. Okay, I can tell that introduces an indirect statement. The author's about to tell you what they what they can tell indirectly. Okay, that, and look at this. We have our subject right here. See, is watching. Okay. This is very important to recognize indirect statements in the English language, and they're always there when we have verbs of speaking, thinking, seeing, understanding. And you can even do a test on it yourself, right? You can say, "Mr. G, I understand that you're trying to teach me," for example. You notice that it becomes that or this that is that separator between the direct speech, which is what I understand, is direct, and then indirect speech is pretty much the interpretation of what you understand. See, you could also make an argument and say, "Mr. G, but yeah, okay, I kind of get that, but isn't the author telling us in here what they're actually thinking? Why is this indirect? It should still be direct." Well, there's two reasons for this. First, the author, we cannot get into the author's head, right? So it's still, grammatically speaking, an interpretation, right? We're not willing to accept it as fact. Second, the only way that you can get rid of that is by putting quotes in between what is being explained. Okay, so I caught my mother saying, comma, and then quote whatever she was saying. Okay, but if you don't remember what she was saying, you say, "Oh, I caught my mother saying that." All right. So differences between indirect and direct speech, and this is very important because we are getting an interpretation, okay, of what the author, in this case I, can tell about a certain person. Okay, so he is watching. Who is he watching? People. Okay, here's the direct object of the watching. Around, and again, this is very important to just read these out word by word, right? Because when I read around, you're going to say around what? Around us. Object of the preposition, and around is a preposition. Now we can understand a little bit this weird verb / participle. Striving belongs to the subject he. Okay, so he's watching the people around us. He is striving to see only them and to forget himself. Okay, so striving, what is the direct objects of striving? We have this right here, which is the object infinitive, right? This is a verb, to see, but it's an object infinitive. It is the direct objects of what he's striving. Striving to see them, okay? There's the direct object. He's striving to see them. Only is an adverb. And then we have a conjunction. And notice that we have two. Here's another one. To forget. Okay, so to forget is another object infinitive. And who is he to forget? Himself. Right? So this long sentence has one direct. Okay, I don't know if I can maybe show it to you visually here. It has one direct statement right here, and it goes all the way to our line. And then it has another indirect statement right here. Okay, so we got 1, 2 sections, and this dash is there for dramatic purposes. How do I know it's dramatic? Because the author is really trying to emphasize that is, the watching part is not just normal watching. It's actually this. When you're writing narrative, try utilizing these dashes, okay, for effect. Try to avoid it on essays. All right. Last but not least, candor values. What does candor value? It values honesty. That's our direct object. Our faction, we have possessive, and our faction, abnegation, values. What does it value? It values selflessness. Okay, so this is what we call a contrast, okay, a contrast sentence where we have one versus another. We have a kind of like a mirror effect with writing. Here's what candor does, and the but, all right, has that huge effect of separation, right, between the two ideas. Notice there's a comma as well. Why? Because after the but, we have a subject, okay? If there is no subject after but, just like there's no subject after and, we do not use a comma, okay? Remember that pesky Oxford comma as you guys keep going in your English studies. That is pretty much a very important thing to note as you go into senior high and as you go into university. Don't forget Oxford commas. All right. Verbs. First one is first person, present, simple, indicative. Awesome. And then we have he, third person, singular. And it's also present. Sorry. Present, simple, indicative. Next. Sorry, he is watching. I apologize. No, it's not a simple. It is progressive. Okay. Now, this is where we catch our first progressive present verb versus a regular simple one. And how do I know? Because there's an is and we have an ing, watching. So auxiliary verb plus a participle, watching equals progressive. That means he's constantly watching versus just watch or watches. And then we got striving, so we got 2 times the same tense. To see and to forget are infinitives, don't have to worry about that. Candor values, then we have third person, it's singular, and it's present, and it's simple, and it's indicative. Perfect. And we have it 1, 2 times. Great, awesome. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's challenge. Sorry that it took a little bit more time, but I'm going to try to really look at different aspects of grammar and try to explain it in case you haven't seen the previous challenges. As always, please send me your comments and questions about anything we do in diagramming. If there's anything that doesn't make sense or you want me to expand on, I'd be very happy to do it. For now, all I can do is wish you guys a very good day today and a happy Victoria Day long weekend with your family. Please don't forget about the comprehension assignment that we're going to have next week. I'm going to give you guys a little bit more to do on that front as we transition into, the end of May pretty much. So thank you so much. Take care and hope to see you after the long weekend. Bye-bye.